Welcome to this week's episode of Everyday Thin Places. I'm Rachael Gallagher, and I'm an interfaith hospice chaplain.
And I'm Elizabeth Ferrasso, and I'm a birth doula.
And in each episode of Everyday Thin Places, we draw from our experiences supporting birthing people and dying people to explore with honesty, authenticity, and humor how we can all become more truly living people.
All right, so today, I, as a birth doula who doesn't know all that much about death and hospice chaplaincy, I get to ask anything of my friend Rachael, who is a hospice chaplain. So we're going to get to find out about you, Rachael. We're going to get to find out about the work you do, what brought you to this line of work. And also, I think that you're just fun and cool. And I like hearing about what you have to say about life because of who you are, totally apart from your job. And so I want everyone to get to know a little bit about you. So we'll have some other fun questions as well. But first, would you mind starting out just by telling me a little bit about why you became a chaplain in the first place, a hospice chaplain?
Yeah. It wasn't anything that I really grew up thinking that I wanted to do. You know, as a little girl, I didn't think, you know, what would be a great job? I want to grow up and work with dying people. In fact, it wasn't even something that I realized was a thing or a job. I've always been curious about faith and spirituality. And I've always been comfortable in settings that involve maybe some things that other people aren't comfortable with. So obviously a big one would be death, but also healthcare. And, you know, some people think of hospitals as like, oh, you don't want to go to the hospital. That's the place where you go when you're sick, or when people die, they go to the hospital. And I've never thought of hospitals in that way. I've thought of them as places where they help people to heal. I've thought of them as a positive experience. So just kind of knowing those things about myself made me realize that maybe there's something to that. Maybe I'm equipped to do something that other people aren't, just given the basic nature of who I am. So I have a background in music, but I also have a background in theology and religion. I have a master's of divinity from a seminary in the area. And that really prepared me to provide spiritual support to people. So getting that formal education combined with who I am as a person and being comfortable in settings where other people are maybe uncomfortable kind of created the perfect storm and led me to be curious about chaplaincy in general and healthcare chaplaincy. And it wasn't until I was looking for a job that I realized that hospice chaplaincy was a job. And when a friend of mine told me about it, she brought it to me and said, I think you would be really good at this. And when she called that out in me, I thought, I think I would be really good at this too. So that's kind of how I got into it in a roundabout sort of way. It's not something that I went into school wanting to pursue, but it kind of presented itself to me and it seemed like a great fit.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you a question just because I know a little bit more about you and your story, and our listeners don't know you yet. You're going to know exactly what I'm getting at, but did you have a life experience where you first met someone who was a chaplain who, what was that like the first time you met a chaplain, and did that, wink, wink, have any influence on you having an attraction to this as something you would enjoy providing for other people?
Yeah, that is a big part of my story. Thanks for bringing that up, because sometimes when I tell this story, I feel like I'm talking about somebody else. It feels like another lifetime sometimes. So I mentioned that I have a background in music, and that is the thing that I grew up wanting to do. You know, like I said, little girl growing up, what I would say was that I wanted to be a performer. And when I narrowed it down even more, I wanted to be a singer. And when I narrowed it down even more, I wanted to be an opera singer. So I actually did all those things. I went through school. I started a career as a professional opera singer, and I didn't get very far into it before I started having like really, really bad pain in my back. And it was just getting worse and worse. So I was on tour with an opera company and was really struggling, really suffering, and decided to seek out some serious medical attention. And when I did that, long story short, over, months actually of trying to figure out what was causing this pain, I finally found out that I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And that's why I was in so much pain. It wasn't a strained muscle like I thought. It wasn't even, the nightmare that I thought would be a hernia. It was a big tumor on my spine. So at 24 years old, I was diagnosed with stage 4 diffuse large B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which at the time they told me typically affects men in their 60s, and nobody could give me an explanation for why this otherwise healthy 24-year-old woman was experiencing this, but it became my reality. And I do remember when I first went to the hospital, I had gone to like lots and lots of doctor's appointments and chiropractors and all kinds of, just searching for anybody to give me an answer or give me some relief. But I ended up in the emergency room because after a couple months of this pain, I actually lost feeling in my legs and I couldn't move them. It was like I was just numb and paralyzed from the waist down. So I ended up in the emergency room and it was really scary. And I remember people coming in and out. It was at the change of shift. So it was first thing in the morning. So all of the nighttime staff was on their way out and all the daytime staff was on their way in. And so I was it felt like my room had a revolving door with people coming in and trying to figure out what was going on with me. And I actually felt like some of the doctors and nurses were probably like coming in to see me and then going back out to the nurse's station and being like, you got to go in and see this young girl and we don't know what's wrong with her. I mean, I don't know if that's really what was happening, but it just felt like so many people were coming in and poking at me and asking questions. And anyway, at one point, a chaplain came in and she didn't even stay long. She didn't even do anything that profound. I'm going to cry. I didn't expect to cry, but she just held my hand and asked me about myself and asked me about my spirituality and was a comforting presence and treated me like a person. And I don't even know how long she was in there. It could have been 5 minutes, but just that 5 minutes was so impactful and like helped me to recenter and think of myself as a person, and reminded me that my spirituality was an important part of everything that was going on. So
that's huge to realize that somebody who, do you remember what she looked like?
Not at all.
Don't remember her name. We don't know how long, but that loving presence had an impact on you and your life and the trajectory of your health and recovery and also your career when all was said and done.
Yeah, it is really crazy to think about, like, I will probably never cross paths with that person again, and even if I did, I wouldn't know it.
Except when, this podcast makes the top 200 and we have 8 million downloads, and she realizes, oh, I remember that girl.
That was me. That would be awesome. So if you're out there and you're listening, go to everydaythinplaces.com. Send us an email. Let us know that it was you, because I would love to thank you. And I think it's important that we share these stories, because who knows how many people I've done that for, that, or that any of us have spent 5 minutes with a person and then it really impacts them in such a life-changing way.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you probably deal with a lot of misconceptions about what your job is. As we've gotten to already, as friends, we've known each other and we've started to understand a little bit more about each other professionally as well. And there's things that you've taught me that I had the total wrong idea of what a hospice chaplain is or what a hospice chaplain does. So can you set us on the right path of understanding what a hospice chaplain does by maybe also acknowledging the things that you don't do that people misperceive as being your job?
Yes, I would love to. So in a nutshell, I would describe my job as I provide spiritual and emotional support for hospice patients and everyone who loves them. But that's kind of a vague description. It looks different for every single family, for every single patient, because spirituality is such an individual, personalized thing, because the needs of each of us emotionally vary from person to person, from day to day. So my job, a lot of it, I always say a big part of my job is improvisational skills because it is so much of adapting to situations. When a patient first comes onto hospice, they get a lot of attention from their entire hospice team. And we truly work together as a team. So the typical hospice team consists of a doctor, a primary nurse, a home health aide, if the family would like that, a social worker, a chaplain, and then sometimes massage therapy, art therapy, music therapy, aromatherapy, volunteers. So it really is a team that works together to support hospice patients and their families in all the ways. So I get to specialize in spiritual and emotional support. But what a lot of people think that looks like is me preaching or putting my ideas of what spirituality is onto people, when really a huge part of my job is listening and learning. So I don't have to be an expert at any one religion or any one thought, way of thinking about the world, any sort of philosophy. I don't have to be an expert at any of these things. I'm an interfaith hospice chaplain, so I do know probably more than the average person about different faith traditions and religions and spirituality. But most of my job is asking good questions. So asking patients and their families and people who love them, is faith important to you? And if the answer is yes, is there any particular faith tradition that you relate to? And then I follow that line of questioning. Well, what does that look like? How does that play into your daily life? How does that play into what you're going through right now? Is that something that provides you with comfort? Is that something that maybe gives you some anxiety? And we work through whatever that is and wherever they're coming from. And I really try to open myself up to other resources. So like I said, we work as a team. So music can come into what I do a lot with our musical therapist and with my own background in music, but also drawing on the other team members who maybe come from different faith traditions. So yeah, it's not one size fits all by any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes people think of the chaplain as like, I hate to even say it, but they kind of think of the chaplain as like the Grim Reaper. Mm. So a lot of times when I call a family and I, introduce myself and try to get my foot in the door, so to speak, they will shut me down immediately and say, oh, we're not ready for that. Mm. And the truth is, ready for what? What is it that you think I'm going to do? Coming in and providing support doesn't mean that today's the day that you're going to die. I think the longer I can be involved and the longer the whole hospice team can be involved, the better. So yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions, but I I try to help people to have an open mind. And I do find that once I can kind of get in there and talk to someone, they can get to know me a little bit. They realize that, oh, I'm not coming to convert them. I'm not coming to necessarily give them their last rites. I mean, that is something that I can facilitate by, giving referrals if that's something that people want. But more than that, it's about just supporting people where they are with what they need.
So what about this misconception? I'm going to go ahead and call it a misconception because I think you'll agree with me that most people, I think about death as being scary, depressing. Most people would tend towards negative descriptions of the time leading up to death or going through the dying process. Why would somebody show up for work to just do something depressing and sad and scary? Is there a paycheck big enough for that? We're not going to discuss your actual paycheck, but this isn't the line of work that you're doing for the paycheck. So why would you do this kind of work? Why would you go hang out with people who are dying, who are getting ready to lose loved ones? And is it sad and scary and depressing?
Yeah. Why do I? Well, something that I say all the time that people probably get sick of hearing is that I love my job. And I honestly, truly believe that I have the best job in the world. I think you would probably argue with me on that one.
I mean, we can be tied for the best job in the world.
Yeah, but it is such a privilege. And, something that we talk about in our conversations is we get to be behind those closed doors where many people don't ever get to go. And it really is a privilege. I mean, I have heard stories that people have never shared with their closest loved ones. Stories that they haven't told their spouse, but are really meaningful. And I just really always reflect on what a privilege it is, the work that I get to do. I don't think of death. It can be scary. It is hard. It is so hard. No matter how prepared you think you are for it, it's hard. There's no way around that. There's nothing easy about death. It doesn't have to be scary, and I don't think of it as a scary thing. I think having the support of a whole hospice team, our goal is to provide comfort, and that is physical comfort as well as emotional comfort and spiritual comfort. And so there's medications that we can give. There's interventions that we can do. There are so many ways to deal with any pain or discomfort or fear or anxiety. We have so many tools for all of those things. So it doesn't have to be scary. And I think because I have that mindset, that makes going to my job a lot easier and a lot more rewarding. And it's weird because I'm healthy. I'm pretty young. I have not died, in case people were wondering. And I haven't even really lost very many people that are super close to me. So I haven't gone through a lot of the things that these families are going through. And sometimes I do question, who am I to be here? I don't have all the answers. I might not even have most of the answers. What makes me think why do I have the right to be here and to speak into these people's lives and, influence how they're doing this or anything like that? And then the answer to that question is because if I'm not here, then what? Right? Even if I don't have the answers, just being there to say, I don't know. And this is hard. And I validate that this is hard. Just that alone is helpful to people. So that takes a lot of the pressure off of me. And at the end of the day, I get to say I was there. I just feel like it is one of the greatest privileges in life And from a spiritual standpoint, I do believe in some sort of an afterlife. Again, it's not something that I have all the answers to, but I have a hard time believing that this is it. And so I think there's something beyond our physical life. And to get to help usher somebody into whatever it is that's next is also just a huge privilege. Yeah. So that gets me out of bed and going to work every day. Awesome. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were a professional opera singer. And we know, obviously, you are an interfaith hospice chaplain. Have you had some other jobs along the way? And how have those contributed toward your preparedness for this job, or just your confidence in this job being something that you are well cut out for?
That's a great question. Also a leading question, Elizabeth. Yes. So in between being an opera singer and being a hospice chaplain, there have been other careers. I think this is like my 4th or 5th career. So yeah, after I was diagnosed with cancer and had to kind of rethink the opera career, I needed health insurance. So that was a big part of leaving opera. There was a really big part that was just practical. I needed health insurance, and this was before the Affordable Care Act existed. So as a professional opera singer, you are an independent contractor, which means that you're responsible for your own health insurance. There's no benefits like you would get with like a salaried job. And as a 24-year-old, when I took the job, I wasn't too worried about all of that. But suddenly I had this pre-existing condition. I needed health insurance, and I knew nobody was going to give me health insurance. So from a practical standpoint, I needed to find something else to do. I also wasn't completely satisfied in that career. There were things about it that were just really hard and not at all what I thought it was going to be. So, yeah. And that experience with that chaplain that I had really opened my eyes to see, like, I want to be in a profession where I'm actually helping people. Not that being a musician doesn't help people. It helps people immensely, but I am certainly a people person, and I love to be one-on-one with people and supporting them. So after the whole cancer ordeal, I thought about what it was in my life that gave me purpose and joy, and what I, looked forward to waking up in the morning to do. And I really thought about the time that I spent volunteering at my church. That was really life-giving for me. I really enjoyed being a part of that. And it dawned on me that some people get paid to do that. So I thought, like, well, why not? Why can't I get paid to do that? I don't have to do this as a volunteer for my whole life. So I started looking into what that would take. And that's what led me to get the Master's of Divinity that I got. But while I was exploring all of that and getting that 3-year degree, I needed a job with health insurance. So I ended up being a assistant director of fashion at a local arts college. And I got to work with students who were pursuing fashion design and fashion marketing careers and help them to figure out what it was that they wanted to do and how they could get to that point. And that was like so unexpected and so fun. I got to go out to fancy lunches all the time and meet really famous people. So if there's any fashion people listening, I got to interact with Andre Leon Talley, who is really well known in the fashion world. He, I don't remember exactly what his title is, but he works at Vogue with Anna Wintour and is kind of her right-hand man. So I got to do some like crazy, wild things just because I worked in like fashion education. It was really fun. And then when I finished seminary, right around the time that I was finishing seminary and I was working that job, a position opened up at this church that I had been volunteering. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is great timing. They're looking for somebody to come on staff as an associate pastor. And I'm finishing up this degree and I love this church. And I'm going to apply for this job that I'm probably not fully qualified for, but why not? It's kind of how I always do things. And maybe I was qualified because they gave me the job and I got to work as an associate pastor for a few years in a neighborhood that I was really passionate about with a community that I really loved. I got to do a lot of that caring for people sort of stuff, one-on-one, helping people through, things that came up in their lives. I got to preach sometimes on Sundays, which was really just like, who gets to do that? That's so cool. Probably people who end up going into podcasting.
Probably.
Yeah, it was just really, really fulfilling and rewarding. I did that for 3.5 years. And then that's when I made the transition to hospice chaplaining.
Stop, though. Stop. Because you had a little side gig there, too.
I did.
Are you going to tell us about your side gig? Because it's one that required sunny weather, surf and sands. That's what I want people to know how cool you are.
So I've never been able to just focus on one job or yeah, you're right. So as a young adult cancer survivor, I participated as a participant in this really cool organization that does adventure experiences, I guess that's what you would call it, for young adult cancer survivors. So ages 18 to 39, if you've been diagnosed with cancer.
Wait, are you saying I'm not young?
In the cancer world.
Okay.
I am just barely on the cusp.
Somebody on this podcast is having a 40th birthday this year. Someone else on this podcast has seen 40 come and go.
Oh, yeah. In the cancer world, 39 is considered the cutoff for being young. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they do this adventure camp. They have a couple different opportunities, but it started out, and now it's grown into other things, but it started out as an opportunity for young adult cancer survivors to go to Maui. First of all, sign me up. I don't even need to hear the rest of the sentence. Go to Maui.
Yes.
But go to Maui and live at camp, which it was very rustic, and maybe people will learn this over the course of the podcast. I am not super rustic, but this was worth it because rustic on Maui is better than rustic anywhere else. Yeah. And you live at this camp for a week and you learn how to surf in the Pacific Ocean, and it is amazing. So I got to go and participate in this, and it was wonderful. I made lifelong friends from it. It was really just incredible. And my life was so changed by it that I wanted to be more involved, as I do. And so they had a position open up for camp director. And I thought, as I do, well, why not me? I'm going to apply for that. And I got the job. I shared it with a really, really great friend of mine. So we were co-camp directors. Triton, if you're out there listening, shout out. At this camp, everybody has camp names. Mm-hmm. So Triton is my co-director, and I was Little Eagle. I am Little Eagle. So, yeah. So I got to fly out to Maui a few times a year and help young adult cancer survivors not just learn how to surf, because I can't teach anybody how to surf. I can barely do it myself. But I got to facilitate conversations amongst the group. I got to ask good questions and support them in the water. Like when someone stands up on a surfboard for the first time, I got to be there to kind of catch them and say, how is that? Yeah. And the answer is always amazing, incredible. Sometimes it's met with tears and, always big, big smiles. And that, yeah, it was really pretty cool. They also do they do surfing in Maui. They also do skiing and snowboarding in Mount Hood. So I got to participate in that too and skied for the first time ever. Yeah. And now they're doing virtual campfires. Oh. Yeah, where the participants can gather from wherever we all are in the world and still have those important, meaningful campfire conversations. Cool. Yeah.
So opera singer, pastor, surf instructor / camp director, and ultimately now you've landed at being a hospice chaplain.
Yeah. And it all, it's weird how it all kind of fits together. I use my music in the work that I do now. I use, even that time spent at the college, advising students. I use some of those skills. Obviously, like some of those campfire conversations and asking good questions and facilitating difficult conversations. I use a lot of that. It all fits together in a way that if I had drawn this out as a blueprint in the beginning, this is not what would have been on there. But it all fits together and just comes together so that I can do the best job in the world.
Awesome. So, Rachael, the last question I'd like to ask you, we've heard about all these sort of professional aspects of you, but I wonder what the people who know you best and love you the most would say, Rachael loves this and Rachael hates that. What are your loves? What are your hates?
So the big one that comes to mind first, like immediately off the bat, is Rachael loves her Chihuahua. I had a Chihuahua for many years, Alfie, and people would still say Rachael loves Alfie. He died last year, and it was heartbreaking, and that is a grief that, it's a grief that I'm still working through. So people would say Rachael loves Alfie, even though he's been gone for a few months. But we have another dog, Daisy May, who I love so much in different ways, but like so much love for her. I'm one of those people. I'm a Chihuahua person. I think that's one of the first things people would say. I think people would say Rachael loves trashy reality TV shows. And that is a badge of honor that I am proud to wear. I don't even really discriminate. You name a trashy reality show, I will give it a chance. I might not watch it all the way through, but I will give it a chance. And some of my favorites, I am known for hosting Bachelor nights where we watch The Bachelor or Bachelorette and talk about it and eat popcorn and but I also really love Real Housewives of New York. Sonia, if you're listening, give me a call. We should hang. I love Married at First Sight. I love 90 Day Fiancé. I mean, send me your recommendations. Tell me the trashy reality TV shows that I should watch, and I will try it because it is a good way for me to turn off my brain at the end of a hard day. A lot of what I deal with in my job is really heavy. And as much as I love it, sometimes I just have to shut it all out. And I think that reality TV is a great way to shut it out. Right now, people would probably say that I love Disney. I haven't always had like a great passion for Disney growing up in Florida. It's just kind of like something that's there and something that you do. But as you mentioned, Elizabeth, I am turning 40 on my next birthday, and I've decided that I'm having my 40th birthday party at Disney World. So that is on the brain a lot. And I've been thinking about it and dreaming and planning and talking about it a lot. So people would probably say that. I don't have a lot of things that I hate. I can't really think of any other things that I hate.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have chosen such a strong Rachael dislikes. Rachael could do without. What could you do without?
I mean, I could get real deep and talk about, negativity. And I'm an eternal optimist, and I always try to look at the positive side of things. And so people who are like just negative all the time, I have a really, really low tolerance for that. So I could do with less negativity. I love Philadelphia. Yes. I'm just going to take your question about things that I don't like and turn it into
that's fine.
All
because you hate the negativity that I tried to ask you to talk about, which you hate. It's a double hate. I hate hating. So therefore you love Philadelphia.
I love Philadelphia. I moved here from Florida to go to grad school in 2003. And I fell in love with the city. And, during that time period where I was on tour as an opera singer, and then after that, when I was sick, I got all my treatments in Florida, and I could not wait to get back to Philly. Like, I just love the size of the city. I love that it's affordable. It's a big city, but it's affordable. There's lots of culture and arts, and it's really diverse. There's so much good food. It's just like a fun place to be. So I love Philadelphia. People would definitely say that. Yeah. And I dislike disliking things.
There we go. Perfect. I think that's a great way to wrap up our conversation. So thank you for sharing yourself and your heart and letting me make you cry a little bit, because that makes me feel good when someone's willing to cry with me. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun for people to continue to get to know you throughout the rest of our episodes as we talk about all sorts of different things, and they get to hear your take on life, not just as a hospice chaplain, but also as a born and raised Floridian, Philadelphia lover, opera singer, all those other amazing, beautiful things that you are. So thank you for sharing your beautiful you with us.
Thanks. This is fun. I can't wait to go on this adventure. Thanks for joining us. Now it's our turn to hear from you. So would you do us a big favor and go into your podcast app and rate us? Even better, would you write us a glowing review? That will help other listeners to find us. And make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode.
You can also visit our website at everydaythinplaces.com, where you will find all sorts of fun and interesting information, as well as learn about how you can help to support this podcast and earn special exclusive perks. There you will also find links to follow us on social media, or else just pop directly over to Instagram or Facebook, where you will find us at Everyday Thin Places. Thanks so much for joining us today. Until next time, I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Rachael. Bye.